Hello everybody, my name is Jeffrey Van, and I will be doing my final summary on the importance of oral history, and this is for ANS 242 with Dave Fazzino. Alright, let's get started. First of all, oral histories. Alaska Native oral histories have been shared for hundreds, even thousands of years. These stories have been told by many different groups of people, and for generations the natives of Alaska relied on subsistence hunting, fishing, and gathering of food throughout the various seasons. These skills were taught by elders through oral stories of their traditional ways of life. Elders taught the younger generations of their heritage by the word of mouth because there was not any other way of teaching younger generations of their past heritage and traditions. Next is the role of elders. Throughout history, elders played a very important role because they have experienced the occurrences in life that younger generations have yet to experience and to learn from. The role of the elder was to teach younger generations on how to carry out their background and teach them how to keep their culture alive and secure. They would tell stories of old and give instructions on how certain tasks were to be done. The stories told by the elders to the younger generations were told to them at a very young age. The stories were repeated so that the younger generations would learn about the history of their culture and embed skills that would benefit their survival and give them the knowledge to teach to younger generations when their time has come to start teaching. The next one is the benefits of oral history. Oral history allows you to acquire knowledge about the viewpoints or perspectives of individuals who might not otherwise appear in historical records. The importance of oral history is you can gather a collection of information about people that may or may not have had a significant influence for recorded history. These unwritten oral stories give an account of different events that have taken place in a person's life. These events that are shared through oral stories can become life lessons. Alright, an example of a life lesson would be, and this is Inuit legend of Sedna. To the Inuit people, the sea is essential for their survival. They relied on seals, walrus, fish, whales, and other sea animals for food and clothing. For that reason, the story of the sea goddess Sedna is one of the most important stories for the Inuit people. There are infinite variations of the Sedna story. A version compiled by Glenn Welker states that she is the witch under the sea, while another insists that she was a giant who grew abnormally quickly until she was bigger than her giant parents. Well, the legend of Sedna illustrates how all of the sea creatures of the Arctic Ocean came to be. Sedna was a young Inuit girl who lived with her parents. She lived with plenty of food and warm furs as her father was a talented hunter. While living at home, many men had asked her parents for permission to marry Sedna, yet Sedna always refused their offers. And as the story goes, Sedna continued to go against her traditions and disregarded her parents' wishes for a long time. Finally, Sedna was left with no other option but to marry a mysterious young man who promised her plenty of food and furs. So they wedded, and the strange man took Sedna away to his island. And when Sedna was alone with her new husband, she came to realize that the man whom she had married was not a man, but he was a bird. Sedna spent months stuck on their isolated island with the wicked Birdman until her father finally came out to visit. Upon realizing that Sedna was miserable, Sedna's father decided to bring her back home in his kayak, and that the Birdman noticed that his wife had gone missing, and he hunted Sedna and her father down. His ferociousness and his flapping wings made huge waves, creating the first storms. At that moment, Sedna's father became overwhelmed with terror, so he selfishly threw his daughter overboard to save his own life. And in desperation, Sedna clung to the edge of her father's kayak, and Sedna's father, maddened by fear, chopped off each of her fingers. And as the story is told, Sedna's fingers became the fish, seals, walruses, and whales. When Sedna sank to the bottom of the ocean, she became the ruler of the sea. And then this is how it became that the Inuit people deeply respected Sedna. And when she is feeling happy, she will send her sea creatures up to the hunters to be harvested. The legend of Sedna is to remind the Inuit people, Inuit hunters, that nothing is for free. Each of Sedna's fingers was a sacrifice to create the animals that nourish the Inuit families. So the ocean is not an unlimited supply of fish, seals, and whales. Instead, Sedna sends the creatures to the surface as gifts. In return, the hunters show respect, their respect and gratitude. And the legend of Sedna gives the listeners, the insight of the traditional ways of life, Inuit traditional ways of life. The story illustrates the structures of families long ago, the typical roles of the husband to provide meat and clothing for his family, while the women would sew, cook, and raise their children. Oral stories and folk tales. Folk tales such as the story of Sedna are told by all cultures of the world. Every folk tale is different, but they all share similar morals. Folk tales and oral stories are meant to teach listeners morals and skills, but in a way that keeps the listeners captivated. They are a mixture of fiction and non-fiction stories that lace with morals of right and wrongs of each culture. And oral stories uphold tradition because oral stories are not only told for entertainment, but are both consciously and unconsciously learning through the enjoyment of stories. Treat oral stories as guidance. Treat oral history as guidance because memories fade, and there is a possibility that the knowledge you obtain through oral history will not exist anywhere else, only in spoken word, and is vulnerable to being lost, being lost through time. Because there's a chance that oral tradition stories will vanish because of several different reasons. One reason could be since they are not documented and are told usually through the memory of elders who are considered the teachers. Stories could be forgotten, or they pass away with the elder, if which leads to the significance of oral history, because everyone has stories, and most stories are not worth recording for most authors. And this is why oral history is important for future generations. There are so many stories to be shared, and and most you cannot fit into a written piece. In conclusion, the importance of oral history is beyond valuable because there is written history and unwritten history. Some historians believe that there are stories that are not noteworthiness. Therefore, they leave certain stories out of the written documents. But the unwritten oral history has significant meaning to the people preaching the stories. Oral history is probably the first type of recorded history, although it is not written. And these stories are passed down through the generations. And these oral stories, are important, for educating the younger generations, because they teach of the history of traditional survival, subsistence, and cultural morals. Tales like the story of Sedno, the importance of the story is to give respect and be thankful for your blessings that you receive. And there are so many different kinds of oral stories that talk about old traditions, and they're all meant to they're all for a reason, to teach younger generations of their past heritage and skills they could later use. And that's pretty much a summary of my paper. All right, thank you.